Welcome to the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Series. My name is Jody Maley, and I've been an entrepreneur and business owner for over 27 years now. Thanks for joining the podcast, and I can't wait to share with you tips and ideas on how to grow your heart-centered entrepreneur business. As a personality dimensions coach, I help entrepreneurs discover who they are at their core so they can have real and authentic sales conversations with their ideal clients. We all started or joined a business so that we can make an income on our terms. Whether you're just starting out in your entrepreneur journey or have been in sales for a while, the key to any business is sales and nurturing the sales relationship. So I invite you to sit back, relax, maybe even have your favorite drink and take some notes as we have fun delving in to learn more from the top 1% to 2% income earners who are making such a difference and impact for themselves and their beautiful teams. Their tips and ideas will uplift and inspire you in a heart-centered, authentic way to help lift you up, move you forwards towards your perfect dream and goal. So stay tuned to the end of each podcast as I will share a little gift from me that I know will get you inspired in your beautiful business. 3 simple steps to manifest your goals. Hi, this is Jody Maley with the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Series and my guest today, Cora Naylor. And we are talking about 3 simple steps to manifest your goals. What a great topic, and I'm so excited that you're here with me. I met Cora last year with a networking group. A beautiful, beautiful group, and she's one of the fellow Canadians. And I'm going to let Cora introduce herself a little bit, tell us a little bit about your journey, and then we'll get into, because we want to get the goods on some simple steps of how we can manifest our goals.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jody, for having me on the show. Excited to be here with everybody. Hi, everybody. So my name is Cora Naylor, and I'd actually do energy healing and manifestation circles. So I'll just give you a quick rundown on how I got into that, because it's not something I ever thought I would be into or any of that stuff that crossed my mind. But a few years ago, I met a lady that had a networking event in Vancouver that does the emotion code. And I was really intrigued by the process, did a few sessions with her, was always really intrigued by that, and kind of put it at the back of my mind after that, let it go. And then I eventually went in and got certified as a life coach. And while I was doing that training and we were working on the part around emotions, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I think the emotion code would be a lot easier than having to necessarily get in and dig into all this stuff from your past. Because for me, a lot of the stuff from my past, I blocked out. And it's not that it was really bad or anything. My parents split up when I was young, and I just sort of shut down a little bit, just thought, it'd be easier to be seen and not heard. And so if, you just stay quiet, nothing bad can happen. And so I just blocked out a lot of the memories from those times. And I know that that's one of the things that has slowed down my entrepreneurial journey. So that's when I started really getting into energy work and doing some of this on myself. I thought, I'll go ahead and get certified in the emotion code so I can work on myself and then maybe help other women that are going through similar things to me. And that was just before COVID, and I got certified, but then I wasn't exactly sure where I was going with it. So I took a break for a few years, and I just came back just over a year ago thinking, I feel like it's time for doing some emotion stuff. The world's in turmoil right now. People are still really looking to find connection and releasing those emotions, because we're carrying a lot of stress around with us, whether it's our own personal stress or just from the world in general. And it just felt like a good time to start with doing some of that kind of work.
Oh, you know what I love that you just said already is the simple factor. And for myself too, that was a message, like when I started in network marketing for real.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I started when my kids were little, and I wanted a simple way to bring in extra income. Plus, for me, it wasn't just money at the time, although that was sort of a driving factor, but I wanted to get out and have adult conversation because my kids were little. So for me, it was getting out, speaking with adults, like it was that human connection. And the fact that I could go out and I used to say to people, this is crazy. I'm able to make a really good income and I'm just visiting with women. And I didn't realize like that was like not charm, but it was a realization that really you can make money doing what you love. Like I'm a great connector. I love talking to people, and go figure, this is still my job today, right? That connecting factor. And what I love with you, what you just said, is the fact that with that you realized that emotional coding, that by the way, lots of people do this. They go into that rabbit hole of emotional coding and thinking that it's hard. Hi, someone here is joining us live. If you have questions, just put them into the comments there. But some people make like that emotional coding hard. And I like that your head wanted to make it simple, simple for you, and that can make it simple for someone else. So, oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
And that's one of the things that I loved about the emotion code and other healing modalities is that the difference between that and talk therapy, which has its place as well, but with the emotional work, you don't have to relive the events to release the emotion that's behind it. And that was one of the things that I really loved about it. And you don't even have to remember the events that happened to release the emotion that was, surrounding that thing and often has followed you through your whole life. And sometimes it's not even your emotions. You might have inherited it from your mom or your dad or even further back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And there was someone who, by the way, I have, and if you're an empath or if you're a reader, you can probably actually pick this up. I was in a group and I'm like, and I've had other healers, or I've been brought up in a very Christian background and stuff. And I'm like, I have no attachments to that. And I have no whatever like baggage around that. And someone was like, oh, everybody does, honey. And I'm like, "Hmm, no." And then someone tried to read it on me and they're like, I'll find something. And then they tried to read me and they're like, oh, no, you don't. And I'm like, I know. So that's always an interesting conversation around people because and I'm also big into, I'm just learning about human design and stuff. And I'm like,
Mm,
go figure that my internal cross or whatever they call it, because again, I think these are just tools that we can use because it's all about you. It's always about your journey and the tools that you choose to use along the way. And for me, I'm literally the heart over the vessel, the cross of over the vessel of love, which go figure. I choose, the heart-centered entrepreneur. I want sales in a loving way, things made easy and simple systems for people. That's what I love to do. And so this goes into what we're going to be talking about today, which is simple steps to manifest your goals. And I think that that's a great topic that we can segue into here for today and talking about with you.
yeah, and it's been sort of an evolution to get there as well because I've been trying lately to really simplify what I do. Like I'm not out there to make $1 million and work 100 hours a week. I'm trying to do everything simple. And I got these steps from one of my mentors in another energy modality that I use called the Global Energy Method. And I started doing these workshops, and women are really appreciating those. And from there, they can go into the circles. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. But the steps are really simple, and it's almost like mixing together goals and intentions to do these 3 steps. So and manifesting is really like that law of attraction, talking to your subconscious mind. So it's really getting it into your body. That's kind of the main thing. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what your goal is going to be. And one of the things when you're manifesting these goals is you want to keep it specific, but yet not telling the universe exactly how to do it. It doesn't like to be told how to do it, but they want to know what you want. So
Right.
a lot of times women come and they want, maybe they want to get more clients. So we can use that as an example. So maybe it's, I want, 10 new clients this month. And don't necessarily tell it that you want, 3 in this program and 2 in that program. Keep it fairly open because you don't know where they're going to come and they might not be what you expected. You might think, oh, I only want to work with these kind of people, but you just never know what's going to show up. So the first step in my
I,
process
I
is,
can I interject that a little bit because I love that.
yeah.
I actually posted somewhat about that this week where I had a picture of my dog and my cat, where I held space in my office for my dog Booker to lay because he's a retired dog diving dog.
Yeah.
And my cat Cinderella actually came in and made herself all cozy on the bed meant for Booker. And I have a picture because he laid in beside and he kind of looked confused, like, oh, I think that bed was meant for me, but she came in and made herself all cozy. And I've had so many interesting conversations about it with people because they had all sorts of different perspectives about it. So it was very interesting that the space was meant for Booker, but Cinderella came in and took the space. And I had maybe 5 different conversations about what they all felt it meant. So it was
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, and being specific to a certain degree, because here's an example from another lady that I know, is she was helping a friend to manifest, who wanted to manifest $100,000. And my friend's kind of thinking, well, that's a lot, but okay, let's do it. So they did it. Well, what happened is this lady ended up manifesting $100,000, but she wasn't quite specific enough. And she ended up getting into a car accident, and the payout was $100,000. So that's just sort of a little example of why you want to be specific to a degree, because often we get what we want, or you're thinking you're walking down the street and you see a hole in the road. You think, oh my God, I hope I don't fall in that hole in the road. And the next thing you know, you're falling down because you just put that thought in your head. So you're manifesting yourself to fall in that hole. So
Right.
these kind of, our mind's always listening to us, whether it's good or bad things in there.
I love it. Okay.
Mhm. So the first step of the process is just opening your mind and getting it prepared to accept this goal that you're going to have. Yeah. And you're just going to say to yourself, I now open my mind, body, and spirit to the manifestation of, and whatever your goal is. So maybe it's more, I want to manifest more clients. My intention is to have 10 new clients in the next 30 days, something like that. And then introduce the thought. And again, because we want to get really visual, we want to involve the body. So it's just, welcome the idea, visual images of, and vibrations toward, and whatever your goal is there.
Hmm.
And then you're going to give it specific instructions. So the specifics of my goal are. And then you want to be very specific. If you want new clients, don't just say you want 10 ideal clients. That's a good start. But what do you want them to be like? Because you could get ones that are a real pain in the butt, that don't pay their bills, that don't show up on time. You don't want those people. So what do you want? So you want, clients that are going to be prompt to the meetings, that pay on time, that see the value in your work, that are easy to work with, that are willing to do the work. And if you're not sure exactly of the things that you do want, the law of attraction exercise that you can do. So just get an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, draw a line, vertical line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, write down all the things you don't want. Because for some reason in our brains, it's often easier to think of the things we don't want than the things we do want. So make a list of all the things you don't want in a client. And then on the right-hand side, opposite the thing that you don't want, write the thing you do want. That it'll be the exact opposite of the don't. And then once you've written that down, cross off the other one. And then that'll give you your whole list.
I love
or
that. And it's really
specifically.
simple when doing that, especially when I'm working with brand new clients. They're like, I'm so tired of this. And that's your don't want list, by the way.
Yeah.
Whenever your
Mhm.
body is in fatigue, or you feel like you're running around in circles, or because it's your language that you're using, by the way, that's telling
Mhm.
you what you don't want. So when people go, and maybe they can't. So for me, that's your listening tools, right? So when people are
Mhm.
like, I just feel like you're on the hamster wheel of this, or I'm so tired of that, or here's another one that I like using for people when they're like, I don't know what it is that I don't want. Think of something that really irks you in the business that you're in, or the modality, because usually it's the thing that makes you the most angry too, that can be the
Mhm.
change that you want in the world. So think of those things too, because those can be the things in your don't want list either.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so that's really the basic 3 steps. But the
Okay.
thing to take it after that is to spend some time with your list every day, visualizing it, getting it into your body. And when you're visualizing what it's going to be like once this goal is completed, get all your senses involved. Like, how are you going to know what's happening? Like, are you going to be checking, if it's a program you have, you're going to be looking at that on your computer. And what are you drinking? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you tasting? Like, get all of the senses involved. That really makes the visualizing a lot more powerful. And then you want to create some steps, because you can't just say, oh, this is this whole thing I want, visualize it, and then go sit on the couch and watch Netflix. You know,
Right.
some kinds of things might
Like
happen
that
like
to
that.
be nice.
Like, I actually manifested a new couch in the house that we're renting down in Mexico, because when we first moved in, there was one couch and a love seat, and the love seat was really uncomfortable. And for some reason, that ended up being my spot. And I was thinking, man, I would love to have like a couch with the two lazy boy things that flip up on the ends, like my husband and I have at home. And about 2 weeks later, the landlady called and said, oh, we're going to do some furniture shifting around there. I've got a couch I want to put in. And that's exactly what it was. So,
Perfect.
sometimes those small things you can manifest. But, bigger things, especially around work, you can't, the universe needs to know that you're serious about this and you're willing to put in your work too. If you put in some work, they're going to put in some work, as long as they know that that's where you're heading. And if you don't know what all the steps are, that's okay. Start with, what do you think the next best step will be? And
Okay.
I know for myself, I just have to be thinking, okay, now I'm thinking, man, I'd like to get into some different networking groups. And the next thing you know, I'm getting all these messages from people saying, join this group, join this group. It's the universe knows what you want. If you kind of give it that thought about what you want, things will show up for you.
Right. I like it. That's also what I had said to I had said to like my marketing coach. I'm like, well, every time I speak, I get clients. So I'm like, again, to the universe, I'm like, well, I guess I need to be asked to be into as a speaker more.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that starts showing up more, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's the hard part, is figuring out the clarity. Because I know for myself, when I came back with this business a couple years ago, I was not thinking I was going to be doing manifesting and helping women with anxiety and overwhelm. I
Right.
started off thinking I was going to be helping with emotional eating, and it's just been a total shift. But as long as you start going along with the steps, things will evolve and you'll get to where you want to be. And
Mm,
if you need help, there's ways to do that. One of the things that I was really looking for last year was, how to have communities of women to support each other. I've been really looking for a way to have a group. I kept saying I wanted it to be like a mastermind, but not a mastermind. I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to be. And I ended up talking to another lady that I know, and she was telling me about these intention circles she was holding, and women were really enjoying those. She said, you should read this book, The Power of Eight by Lynn McTaggart. And if you're into energy work at all, if you haven't heard of this book, I highly recommend reading it, because Lynn did all these experiments with thousands of people. to see what the power of energy was like. And so they did things like growing seeds and changing the pH in water and reducing violence in cities with thousands of people. And then she figured out that they could also do stuff with small groups. And that was these Power of 8 groups.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are healing things. And it's just amazing to read some of the stuff that's happened in these groups. But I read this and thought, oh, I like this idea. Have you
You know
heard of
what's
the book?
crazy? You know what's crazy coming up as you're literally saying this? So when you're doing things, and I have a few tabs open up on my computer, and literally as you're saying this, blinking in the background on my LinkedIn is like an 8. It keeps blinking at me.
Oh,
8.
funny.
I'm like, oh my goodness. Anyways, I think that the universe tells you things, by the way. There's signs of, and so I'm like, oh, I have not read this book, but I think as soon as I'm off this call, I must buy it because the universe is telling me so.
Yeah. And so it's really cool. So I read that and thought, oh, these small circles sound amazing. So I started talking to a couple of people about it, and they're like, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to do that. I'd like to do that. So then I started these manifestation circles with women in small groups. And they've been so powerful and they're amazing. And it doesn't take that many. We kind of go with between 6 and 8, somewhere in there. But sometimes the women manifest something they want right away. We literally had one lady who was manifesting more clients. And while she was telling us what her intention was, she got an email from a previous client wanting to do some work with her. And then we do a meditation as a group around the intention. And while we did the meditation, she got a download of a whole bunch of previous clients she hadn't reached out to for a while. So that coming week, she reached out to them and her business just went crazy. So it doesn't work like that for everybody, but it's really, really fun when it does. But the cool thing is even once we're finished the sessions, we should get together once a week for 8 weeks. Everybody gets something they need, even if they haven't gotten what they wanted, because sometimes their intention is a longer term thing.
Right. I love it.
It's
All right.
super cool.
And so did we go through all the steps too, or?
Yeah. So the steps again were the open the mind.
Open the mind.
A lot of it's just thinking stuff.
So
Opening the mind.
figure out what you want it to be, right? Open the mind.
Yeah. Know your goal and just kind of being open-minded about it, getting it into your body,
Right.
introducing that thought, getting ready to do some visual imaging and getting that vibration, and then giving it the specific instructions. So the specific instructions of my goal are, and then that's when you're going to have your list of all the things that you want.
All right.
So those are the 3 steps.
So number 1 was open the mind. Number 2 was, because I was so intent on listening, I didn't even write it down. So open the mind was number 1. Yep. Number 2 is
introduce the thought.
Introduce the thought, and then
give introduce the thought, and then give instructions. Yeah.
And I love this too, because one thing that I taught, and it was actually years ago when The Secret came out, and I actually had a health scare years ago when The Secret had come out. And again, like my background is, brought up very conservative, very Christian in our household. And so when The Secret came out, there was, all the hubbub around The Secret and the book. And this is way before even the movie or anything had come out, right? It was just the book. And I had a health scare that I was actually having, I thought they were heart attacks. And I was young. Mm-hmm. We have 6 kids, 2 his, 2 mine, and 2 together. And our youngest 2 were the 4 older ones kind of were at their other parents' homes, and they'd come in and out of our houses quite frequently. But our youngest 2 were the ones that still lived with us full time. And they were 5 and 3 at the time. And my husband was out of town working. And so I was left at our home quite a bit alone with the kids. And I'm having what I was feeling like these mini heart attacks. And I'm like, what happens if in the middle of the night, because they were happening at night with no rhyme or reason. So that's why I knew they weren't panic attacks, right? Because they were middle of the night having like these attacks. And I just thought, what is happening? Like, what happens if I keel over and my 5-year-old comes in and finds me? Like, I was just, it was utter chaos and I didn't know what to do. And somebody had said to me, you need to read like the book, The Secret. By the way, the health concern is that I was actually having spasms in my arteries. So my arteries were actually going, and so there wasn't any harm to my heart, but it was a real thing. And I just had to take a little bit of medication and it all went away. So luckily there was no lasting damage to my heart, but I was very, very fortunate. Anyways, but I started then reading the book Secret, and I thought and a lot of stuff in The Secret, by the way, is biblical. I mean, there's lots of biblical quotes in it and stuff, and I really resonated with it, but they didn't really tell any of the how.
Yeah.
So I was really then even more confused because I'm like, okay, I have my Christian background, I have The Secret, and I couldn't figure out this other thought pattern. And it wasn't until years later, well, not years, a couple of years later, that I had my own radio program. And it came to me just kind of this whole of what you're saying right now. And I was on a radio talking with my co-host back in the day we didn't have all this fancy stuff. You know, we had Blog Talk Radio. So you didn't have the visual. You were literally on a phone, you know, your phone, and doing radio programs and stuff. And I was talking, and all of a sudden it became clear to me that yes, we have this power of what we want in life, but what we need to have behind it is intention. And it's just like people throw out to the universe all these balls, throwing them up in the air of what we want, right? And this is how like God revealed it to me. It's like people throw out all these balls and goals and this is what we want and whatever, but they don't let the ball hit the floor and bounce back up to them. So it's like they take the ball, they drop the ball, it hits the floor, but it doesn't come back up with enough bounce for them to grab it. So what they need to do is just turn the ball around, give it intention to the universe, where with that intention, it goes up, it hits the ground, and then lands back to them. And I'm like, that was kind of the missing piece. Instead of people going around into the universe just willy-nilly throwing around all these, I want this, bring this to me. And like you said, then sitting on the couch watching Netflix, thinking that it's all going to come to you. I agree. I love this, that you have to have the goal or the intention, but you have to do a little bit of work in honing in on what is it, and have that intentional. And then this is what I called the inspired intention of putting it out there, acting as if already. And some people call that the woo juice. I don't know.
But I think that's the intention. That's the part, and the clarity, because you can't just say, oh, I want $100,000. Well, that's what are you going to do for it? You know, it's not just going to drop into your lap. The odd time it could, you know, honestly, but it's like winning the lottery. The chances are not that great. But there's lots of things you can do for it as long as you're willing to take some steps. The universe is going to take some steps, and it's kind of like you do give and take there, right?
And you have to be very clear. Like that woman, she wasn't clear. It did come to her, but it cost her, you know, an accident. I actually this is a cute story that I love sharing. One of our leaders in network marketing, she was a single mom, and she had a beautiful daughter in Vancouver. And we were doing dream work and dream art and stuff like that. And you know, we had a fun weekend where she had us all with magazines and cutting out, making dream boards, vision boards and stuff, which was always kind of fun. And I remember her name was Dracy, and she's as beautiful as that name, by the way. And she cut out on her dream board and vision board a man, because she's like, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have 4 kids. And so she cut out like the picture of this gorgeous fellow and put it on her dream board and stuff. And I am not kidding. 90 days from that, she met a fella who was a model from Australia, met him, fell in love, married him. They had kids. And this is the funny part. He was that exact same model that she cut out on that picture.
Oh, yeah. I know. That's
It's like
so, I mean, that's
just chills. Of course, it would only happen to Tracy because she's like that.
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
this is
It's
the power
just
of
so
that
open.
intention, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard recently that you should actually, if you're gonna put pictures of people on there, that you should put yourself in the photo, like print off some images of yourself, because usually we just have that generic woman on there, for a vision board, but that you should actually take photos of yourself and put yourself there with it. And
Yeah.
that
And I
even
think
ramps
she
it up a
did,
little
now
bit
that you
more.
say that, I mean, that vision board was with her and her
Mm,
daughter and a picture of him, and they're
mm,
happily still married in
mm,
Australia because she moved there with him, and they do have 4 children, and it's just
yeah,
it's amazing what yeah, the more specific you are with that, and I've done the same thing. Like, we lived in a tiny little trailer that we were visiting our when I was having this heart problems and stuff, and again with The Secret, and then the same thing. I'm like, oh, inspired action, and I just saw ourselves on a lake drinking my cup of
mm,
coffee, and I envisioned the whole thing. Bright sunroom, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah, all this stuff. And my husband had a new job, and we were having a hard time finding a house. And all of a sudden, he's like, I think I found the perfect place for us to rent. And it was a house on a lake. And as we moved in,
mm,
and it didn't have like this room that I thought was spectacular. But the morning that we moved in, he had my favorite chair in the sunroom, and it was a darker room. But when the chair was out there and the morning sun came up, and it was like my vision right there. It's like,
yeah,
oh, sun coming up, me drinking my coffee. And I mean, this is the power of intention, people. Like, you really, really can. And the more you can bring into your vision how you feel, the taste of something, the and just like Cora said, bring in the thoughts, the feelings. If you can write it down and then bring it, the quicker, the easier, because I think we tend to not write it out, but I think that there's, and I'm sure that
yeah,
it's probably in this book as well, but there's a connection with the written to our brain somehow still,
yeah.
right?
And yeah, and even just taking the time to visualize it, either or, the more you can do, the more powerful it's going to be for sure. And yet sometimes there might be blocks there. I know for myself, I mean, I was in
Right.
network marketing for years too. Um, there might be some emotional blocks that need releasing, because often for like abundance thing, there could be an abundance wall. You could have a heart wall, which is literally a heart wall is emotions that trap around your heart over the years. Every time you've had relationships, maybe that haven't worked out, you know how sometimes with women, especially, they go out with that same guy all over and over that's not good for them. So they have
Right.
the heart wall with these relationships. So you can release that emotion, and that can help open things up too. So if things are not working, you also have to take a look and say, is it something in me? And is there something I can do about it? Because these days, especially, there's so many different modalities of energy healing and all kinds of things that can really help to loosen things up and just get you open to receive. And
Oh,
then one of the other things I've really noticed in the manifestation circles that surprised me was some women are not good receivers. They say they want things. One of the ladies we did when we did our um, meditation for her intention, we could all tell that her energy was blocking us from getting to her. So
interesting.
a lot of times we say we want all these things, but we're givers as women often and not good at receiving. So
Hmm.
that's another thing that might need some practicing, because if you're not good at receiving a gift or even a compliment to
I
me
was
is one of
just
the
going to say,
biggest.
I bet you she has a hard time even just being, wow, your face look, your smile looks so beautiful. And she probably has a hard time even receiving that simple compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most women do. Like, oh, I love that dress you're wearing today. Oh, this whole thing. I have had it in the closet for years.
Right.
We can't just say thank you and receive it. It's
Yeah.
always kind of deflected.
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
How well are you at receiving things?
Mm.
Hmm. All right. So the 3 simple steps. So
Mm.
I'm just going to go quickly over them
Yeah.
again. So open your mind is number 1. Number 2 is introduce that
Mhm.
thought. Number 3 is give instructions a little bit more clearly so that we can be receiving of them. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much,
And then
Cora.
once you have those, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Finish it.
Yeah.
Finish your thought there.
And then once you've done those 3 steps, then you gotta think, "What's the next steps that I can take?" And then
Right.
I do periodically offer this as a workshop. So in the workshop, I also do a group energy release to release some of the blocks that might be stopping us from getting these things done.
Right, because there are people who can just take this today. They're probably going to listen to this, write down those 3 things, and just fly. And then there's going to be
Yeah,
other people of, I need help.
yeah,
Help me, please.
yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing with sales conversations with people. They can take my free stuff that I host every week and they just run with it and go, oh, I get it, got it, good. Ching, off they go. And then there's other people of my sales are still stuck. I need help. I need help learning how to be, learn sales quickly and easy with flow. And so then
yeah,
they're like, please help me, Jody. Help me, Rhonda, just like the song.
yeah. Right.
And then that's when they're like, they come into our realm, right? So if you are struggling with some simple manifestations and goals and knowing that I think with Cora, it's knowing that you're worthy to receive them,
Mm,
then this is the lady for you. And I just love your message. I think that this is something that is well needed right now. And that people do try to make this a lot more convoluted. And I love that you're making it simple for people.
mm.
And that
Awesome.
as you're learning along the way, someone else had asked me this, I think it was in one of our polka dot groups too, about, well, how do you know that you're even on the right curve of what you're doing and that you're making the difference for people? And it usually is, who were you about 2 years ago? And that's who you need to be showing up and teaching today. So your
Mhm.
journey of who you were is usually the scope of, as a coach and mentor and teacher, of where you need to be going today. So I love that you're on that journey, because this is
Yeah.
definitely the work that you're doing and inspiring people to move forward with who they are today. I love it. It's from the heart.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure, again, getting to know you even a little bit more. And
Yeah.
if you want to learn a little bit more about Cora, we are going to have her website attached here, and you can join in on one of her circles. And again, thank you so much for holding space with us today at the Heart Centered Entrepreneur Series. And thank you again, Cora, for being here and sharing this amazing content with us. Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
everyone, and
Thank
blessed,
you.
blessed day. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned a lot. Each one of my guests have a special and unique spot in my heart, as they have shared what they love about their business and how they truly have grown in their entrepreneur journey. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I would love to gift to you a fun and easy quiz that you can take right now that will help you assess how you feel about the sales process in your beautiful business. Building relationships, lifting each other up so we can all gain more in our lives and our business is what is truly important to me. And my hope is that in some small way, I've been able to do that for you today. So again, this is Jody Maley with the Heart Centered Entrepreneur Series here in beautiful BC, Canada. Truly have a great and inspired rest of your day. The link to the quiz will be attached below, and please like, follow, and share this podcast if it inspired you today.